Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, and do not adjust your computer screens. I was just on yesterday with my live show, which usually covers most of the news of the week, but there were a few things that happened last night and yesterday after I did my show that I wanted to talk about, including what looks to be like a #1 movie in theaters for Netflix, believe it or not. That you don't really hear me saying that or anybody saying that very often. There was also the premiere of Peacemaker Season 2, and there was some stuff I wanted to talk about with that. And we also had a change in release strategy for The Paper, which is the spinoff of The Office. I want to look at that and what that might say about Peacock's confidence in the show. But let's start off as we head into the weekend with what might be, at the end of the weekend, the #1 movie here in the United States. And according to reporting from Deadline and other industry sources, K-Pop Demon Hunters may well come out on top as the #1 movie at the box office, which is funny because if Netflix holds true to form, they may not even officially release box office numbers for that movie. That's going to be very interesting if we have the #1 movie with no official box office total reported. If you haven't heard, K-Pop Demon Hunters has been for 2 months now the #1 movie on Netflix. It's rapidly becoming the most watched movie they've ever put out over its first 90 days. And if it keeps this momentum going, it may very well be eventually their most watched movie ever. A couple of weeks ago, it was announced that for right now, 1 weekend only, if it does really well, we'll see if they extend this run. But as of now, it is a 1 weekend only release of K-Pop Demon Hunters in theaters in a sing-along version, as well as some that are just regular versions of the movie. And looking at the pre-sales for the film, it looks like it is being set up to be the #1 movie at the box office this weekend. And just to underscore that, I wanted to show you what it looks like in my town and towns surrounding it. And just to give you a little bit of information, I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I don't live in New York. I live in a pretty nice sized town in a fairly populated part of Arkansas, but certainly not the kind of draw you see for most movies in the bigger cities. It is very rare that I go to a movie and it is especially crowded. But this is what K-Pop Demon Hunters looks like in my neck of the woods for this weekend. It's playing on Saturday and Sunday in 2 different theaters near me. There are 18 screenings across those 2 days. And I logged on to Fandango just to see what the seats looked like. This is one of my local theaters on Saturday, and you can see right now already there are about, maybe 24 seats that are left that you can buy. I'd say most of those are in the front row. And again, this is not usual for where I am. For a movie to be this sold out going into the weekend, this is another theater near me. They have 5 screenings on Saturday, and you can see on the bottom, those are bigger theaters. Pretty much they're overall bigger theaters than the other theater that I was looking at. Early Saturday afternoon, 1:45 p.m. About half the tickets are sold. That's not bad, but look at what's happening later on. 4 o'clock on Saturday, completely sold out. 4:05 on Saturday, almost completely sold out. 7 o'clock on Saturday, 1 seat left in the front row. 7:05 p.m. on Saturday, about 6 seats left in the whole theater. And then when we go into Sunday, this is really surprising to me because Sunday afternoon, a lot of times around here, that's church time. The Sunday afternoon early movies aren't usually sold out. Sunday afternoon at a theater near me, again, you can get some seats in the front row, a few others, but that's about it. Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock, 1 seat left in the theater. 4:15 p.m., again, about half a dozen seats left. 7 o'clock p.m. on Sunday, 3 seats left in the theater. And then going to the bigger theater near me, Sunday morning, about a dozen seats left, and then you've got the first 2 rows completely sold out at 4 o'clock, about a dozen seats left at 4:05, a handful left at 7 o'clock, and about 24 seats left at 7:05. This is unusual, and I think what this shows is that this is not a specialty release, as some people might have thought, like, oh yeah, it's getting great numbers on Netflix, but it's, a limited crowd that's watching it over and over and over again. That's not what I'm seeing based on these results, and I can guarantee you that if the screenings look like that here in Arkansas, then they are going to be sold out all across the country, and we could be seeing a figure that's much bigger than the $15 million that some people are talking about right now. However, the other side of this coin is that it is not in as many theaters as your average wide release. It's an estimated number of about 1,700 theaters. Your average huge, let's say MCU release, is in 3,000 plus theaters. And one big reason for that is that AMC, which is the biggest theater chain in the country, is not hosting any screenings of K-Pop Demon Hunters. And, there has been some beef between AMC and Netflix in the past because of the theatrical window, but there have also been deals struck before. Back when Glass Onion got a fairly small, for a movie of that size, release in theaters a few years ago, AMC and Netflix were able to strike a deal because AMC said, well, there's a theatrical window big enough with this movie that we are okay with hosting it because we don't think that it's going to cut into our business. And here, that's not even an issue because, again, this movie has been available on streaming for 2 months and it is selling out screenings around the country. AMC can't really be that concerned with the theatrical window cutting into their business because that window has been closed for a long time now. So I don't know exactly why AMC is not hosting the movie. Maybe Netflix didn't want to book the movie in AMC theaters because of their past beef. Or maybe AMC wanted to kind of take a stand against Netflix. Either way, I think whoever made the decision, Netflix or AMC, they are both costing themselves money. And I think it's probably more likely that AMC said, we're not going to book the movie because it's a Netflix film and we have this disagreement over windows. By not showing the movie at this point, they're not doing themselves any favors. They are just saying we are not going to take essentially free money, because I can promise you that if this movie were playing in AMC theaters, it would be selling those screenings out as well. Now, if it's a Netflix AMC issue, if Netflix is the one that's not putting movies in AMC theaters, they're also costing themselves money, because by not showing their movie in the biggest theater chain in the country, they're greatly reducing the number of showings. And again, if almost every showing is sold out, that means that there are plenty of people that want to go to the movie this weekend and can't get tickets, which means that that's money that's not going back to Netflix for this limited theatrical release event. And if it does really well, it will be interesting to see if they say, okay, well, you know what, maybe let's do it again next weekend, because this is still money going back to Netflix. And really, what I think that this does in general is that it demonstrates to Netflix and theaters, particularly AMC, that they don't necessarily have to be antagonists all the time. I understand, I don't agree with, but I understand Netflix's position of not wanting to put their newer movies in a bunch of theaters because that's not what their business model is. I think it's dumb because I think that there are plenty of people that will go see it in theaters and watch it on streaming. Glass Onion was a big hit on Netflix even after it had that theatrical run. The numbers were still huge when it debuted on streaming. This does not have to be an antagonistic relationship. I think it can be a win-win for Netflix and theaters if they team up more on these kinds of things. And again, for most people that are going to see this movie, keep in mind, they're buying a theater ticket to go see a movie that they can watch at home for free. I mean, for the Netflix subscription price that they're already paying. I think it's probably a very small number of people that are going to see K-Pop Demon Hunters this upcoming weekend that haven't seen it, that don't have Netflix, and say like, well, I'm going to go see what all the fuss is about. I can almost promise you this is mostly probably a lot of kids and their families, a lot of people that also just like the movie that don't have kids that want to experience this in a theater. And that's the other thing that, I feel sort of vindicated in some of my feelings about movie theaters, because this shows when people say like, nobody wants to go to the theaters anymore because of streaming, because they could just watch the movie at home. This to me says that for the right movie, for the right project, for the right thing that people are super excited about, they do want that experience. They want that communal experience. They want to see it on the big screen. They want to share their love for this movie with other fans of the movie. And so, it doesn't completely derail the idea that people are watching at home instead of going to the movies, because I think you look at the box office recently, it's hard to argue against that. But what I think it does push back a little bit against is the narrative that streaming will one day completely replace the theatrical experience, because there is something special about sharing a room full of people who are all as excited for the movie as you are that you just can't replicate anywhere else. So my hope is that this is a big success for the theaters that are showing the film and for Netflix as well, to show them, hey, you know, there is some value to this model as well. And maybe it will also remind people that, yeah, there is also value to enjoying a movie that you like with everybody else. So I will be tracking the story very closely. Obviously, Charts with Dan, I will be compiling and finding any box office data that's made available. And if this is a smash success, it's hard for me to believe. This was a question that came up on my live show this week, whether I thought that Netflix would report data. There will be people that are gathering estimates. There are always third-party box office trackers that are getting the numbers that are coming in and can guess at how much a movie is making. But I hope that Netflix also kind of drops this veil of secrecy and shares those numbers. I could really see it going either way. We never got official numbers for Glass Onion. They were always sort of a guesstimate that Netflix kind of was like, yeah, that sounds about right. But I hope that we get some transparency here. And of course, stay tuned here on the channel because we are going to be talking about as much as we can with K-Pop Demon Hunters. But yeah, what's looking like an unexpected #1 movie here in the late summer. And as we have seen with movies like the Eras Tour from Taylor Swift, it's also an unexpected win for theaters with a movie they didn't necessarily know was coming, that kind of popped up a little bit before it was released and could give them a big windfall when they need it the most. Well, let's turn from a project that a streamer has a lot of confidence in to a project that may not have as much confidence based on what we learned yesterday. I want to talk about The Paper, which, if you didn't know, The Paper is a spin-off show of The Office, kind of. It really only has one character who's returning, which is Oscar, but it's a completely new setting, a completely new premise. It's set at a small town local paper that is struggling, obviously, as many newspapers are, but in that mockumentary style that people are used to from The Office. And the premiere of the show is less than 2 weeks away. It's set for Thursday, September 4th, and the original plan was for the first 4 episodes to debut on Peacock, which is the streaming service that will host the show, and then for 2 episodes to follow every week after that. So it was about a month-long rollout for The Paper, but just yesterday, Peacock announced that they are changing that release strategy, and they will instead be releasing all 10 episodes of this season at one time. Now, there are always reasons for streamers and networks to make a decision like this, and there's been no reporting on why they changed that model, but I can just tell you from past experience watching shows and following streaming news, for a streamer to change a release strategy for a show like this close to its premiere date, in the past, that hasn't really always indicated that a streaming service or a network has a whole lot of confidence in that project. If you go back to shows like Echo on Disney+, they decided to drop all the episodes at once. This is a strategy we've seen with Disney+ in particular, but with other streaming services as well, where if they have a big project, a much hyped project that they've seen and they've said, well, you know, maybe this isn't necessarily what we hoped it would be, they just put it all out there at once. So it's sort of like ripping the Band-Aid off. And this is not a decision that was made 2 months or 3 months away from the premiere of a show. This is a decision that was made 2 weeks away from the premiere of the show. For me, looking at the short window here before the premiere of the series, there's one of 2 possibilities. One of them is that they looked at the entire season and said, oh wow, this show is great. And we really want to get it all out there at once because we just think it's awesome and we want the buzz to be going right away. And we think that people are going to watch everything at the same time because this is a really strong show and this is a way to get word of mouth going. Or I think the other option is they looked at the series and said, you know, this didn't really turn out the way that we wanted it to. And instead of slowly rolling it out over a series of weeks and having that potential bad reaction last a month, we would rather just put it all out at once. And if the reaction is bad, it's a 1-week story and not a 4-week story, and we can move on to the next thing. If the streamer loves a show, generally they are going to try to extend the release of that show as long as possible. Look at what HBO Max did with The Pit earlier this year. That was a week-to-week show. It built momentum as it went. I think the fact that it didn't all come out at once helped that series because people told other people. That's how I heard about it. I didn't watch The Pit until very late in its run. It might have been right after it wrapped up that first season. But it seemed like every week more and more people were climbing on. We saw it hitting the top 10 in the Nielsen streaming ratings as it got toward the end of that first season. That is generally what a streamer, I think, is going to do if they think a show's great, because they want to get more people to sign up and, let that word of mouth spread organically. Versus this, it just kind of feels like they're, for lack of a better word, dumping the show. I certainly hope that it's the former. I hope that it's a really good show and they said, we want everyone to see it all at once. But this has the feel of a show that maybe didn't turn out as expected. I will be tuning in. I'll be watching it. I love The Office. I love a lot of the creatives behind the show. But I'm not heartened by this move. And we'll see where we go from here. All right, so before we jump into my review of the first episode of Season 2 of Peacemaker, I want to thank my partner for this episode. We were just talking about a streaming series. We were just talking about a movie on Netflix. Well, my partner for this episode is a podcast about a Netflix streaming series. It's the Wednesday Season 2 official Wocast. We talk about all the big movies and shows around right here on the channel. We've been talking about the streaming numbers for Wednesday Season 2. They've been pretty big so far. And if you want to dive deeper into the mysteries of the show, you can do that right now with the Season 2 official Wocast. It is hosted by Caitlin Riley, along with her producer, Thing. It's interesting to have a producer that's just a hand. I don't know how that works. There are 8 episodes of the show to break down, so you're going to learn more about Nevermore Academy than you ever have before. The Wednesday Season 2 official Wocast is available in audio and video form on Todoom.com, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you find your podcasts. I want to thank them for being a partner here on the show and also being really great to talk to about the fact that, when they approached and said, we want to team up, I said, that's great, but, I also talk about Netflix and streaming ratings, and I'm probably going to review Season 2 when it's done. Is that going to be an issue? And they said, not at all. We think that your viewers would probably be interested in this, but we're not going to try to put any pressure or conditions on what you say outside of this partnership. So, I think that that's great. I think that that is what makes a great partnership, is communication and understanding. So you can find out more information about that in the description below. All right, let's wrap things up with the Season 2 debut of Peacemaker. Apparently, this was the reason that Superman went digital so early. James Gunn has said that he wanted people to be caught up on Superman in order for the premiere of Peacemaker. Although I think it's kind of hilarious because there's got to be at least one parent out there that wasn't paying a whole lot of attention and saw that there was a new DC show on HBO Max and was like, oh, my kid loves Superman. Yeah, I'll let him watch Peacemaker. And, within 15 minutes of the show starting, it's just a full-on orgy. I mean, I've seen hard R-rated films that were less explicit than that scene in Peacemaker. I'm sure that there were some very angrily worded social media posts over this season premiere, even though that I saw messaging out there from some of the actors and from James Gunn saying like, hey, people should just be aware this is a different show. We're not softening ourselves because Superman was more of a family-oriented film. At the same time, though, it's kind of like if The Boys had put out an A-Train spinoff movie that was like PG-13 and brought in a big family audience and then kind of fed them into the latest season. These two things are not alike, but I guess I can see why they wanted Superman on digital. There were some references, and I guess the main thing would have to be that you'd need to be familiar with the DCU. And this is where I'm kind of going to go into a little bit of spoiler territory. So if you don't want to know anything about the Season 2 premiere, then you can pause the video and go watch it and come back. But right from the start, the very beginning, we got a not previously on Peacemaker, but a previously on the DCU. And it became clear right away that we were not exactly in the same universe as we were with Season 1, because in the previously on, I was watching all the stuff from Season 1, which is good because I'd forgotten some of it. And then we got to the end and Peacemaker starts talking about Green Lantern. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't remember him saying that. And then we get to that scene in Season 1 where the Justice League showed up with Aquaman and Flash and Wonder Woman and Superman, except now it's the Justice Gang. You had Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl and Green Lantern, Superman, Supergirl. And there were lines between the Justice Gang that definitely weren't in Season 1. And it really all made sense when we got to the basic premise of the season, which is that this sort of multiversal supply closet that Peacemaker has actually connects to a bunch of other portals to different universes. So the Peacemaker that we saw in season 1 is in one of those different universes that's only slightly different. Really, the only thing that's different is that the Justice League from the DCEU exists in one, and the Justice Gang from the DCU exists in the other. All of the other events happened pretty much the same. And I guess that's an okay way to do it. I mean, it's you have to basically retcon corporate strategy. That's not easy to do. And they were able to tie it into the overall bigger theme of the season. But I was more intrigued with how they're using that in a much bigger sense, which is that, Peacemaker is in pretty rough shape in this season. He's rejected from everywhere, including the Justice Gang, as is everybody else that he was working with. And then he stumbles into this universe where his dad is alive, his brother is alive, everybody's happy, they're living together, they're fighting crime together, he's got a lot of money. I mean, it seems like a really, really good life. Now, because of the way that things work, I suspect that there are going to be some things about this universe that end up being not so great, but it's pretty tempting for where Peacemaker is at this point in the show. And then this first episode ends with him being pursued by the Peacemaker from that universe and our Peacemaker killing that version of himself. And looking at the sort of season preview that they gave us, it looks like he's going to be very tempted to, and perhaps for a while does, take the place of himself in what he considers to be a better life. And then his friends in his home universe are trying to say, hey, we got to get our Chris back. We got to get our Peacemaker back. I think that that is a fun way to take the second season and also tie it into the fact that the DCU is completely rebooting. And it's better than just kind of rehashing the season 1 plot line of like, okay, we're back together and it's the same organization and here's another big universal threat. This feels like it's going to be a lot more personal. So I like that general setup. Honestly, I think it would be great if at some point in this season we meet the Chris from the DCEU universe and the Chris from the DCU universe, and they're comparing notes, and it's just like, oh, did that happen in yours? Yep. Did that happen in yours? Yep. Did that happen in yours? And then they get to the Justice League. He's like, no, you mean the Justice Gang. And they maybe even compare notes on the Superman in each universe, that there's a Supergirl in your universe. Like, that is another way I think you could have some fun with it. I don't know how many different versions of himself they want Peacemaker to meet in this season, but I think that that would be a way to lampshade it and have a little fun with it. I know that there are a lot of people that don't want to have fun with the idea that the DCEU is gone and the DCU is now what exists. But I think that there is a way to have fun, and it'll be interesting to see if they decide to take that avenue. There's one thing that was sort of a big issue for me, which was the opening sequence. That first season dance and that song were both so great. I just don't think that this new one really measures up. It's more the song, I think, for me than the dance. The dancing is pretty similar, but the song just doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't really hit with me. It doesn't seem to match the feel of the show. But I also wonder if it'll be kind of like the new season of an anime series where you really, really loved the theme song from that previous season, and then you get to the next season and it's a new one and you're like, oh no, that's not, the last season's one was so much better. And then by the end of that season, you like that one just as much. I don't know if I'm going to be on that journey with it, to be honest, but we'll see. I'm not ready to hit that skip intro button just yet. From where I sit after episode 1, I think it's a bit of a downgrade, but I'm willing to give it more of a chance. Generally, though, beyond the basic setup, it feels like pretty much the same show. And like I said, I do like the fact that they seem to be trying to evolve the characters and move them into somewhere different. And I think that the multiple universes is going to provide an interesting way to do some meta humor, to get a little bit of character development. I like that you're bringing Robert Patrick back as his dad. You're bringing in his brother, who was obviously not a character in the show before. I think that John Cena, he was good in season 1. He was really good in this second season. It feels like he's bringing, especially because he's not wrestling as much anymore. He's still wrestling a little bit, but it feels like he's bringing that same kind of focus that you see many professional wrestlers bring to wrestling, that dedication and wanting to get the craft right and learn the moves and the technical aspects of it. It seems like he's bringing that to acting, because I think that his performance in this premiere was even better than what we saw in season 1. And I've seen some interviews with James Gunn where he said, yeah, I thought that too. It's like, wow, this guy really upped his game between the first 2 seasons. So there's a lot of potential there. I thought that this was a pretty good first episode. You do have to lay some groundwork, which can often be the hardest stuff to do in a season. And sometimes the potential for a season, the premise for something, can be more exciting than the execution. So I'm not going to say, oh my God, the season's going to be amazing. I don't get early access to episodes for HBO Max shows or really from any of the streaming services anymore. So I don't know what the show has in store going forward. I think some people might have seen more episodes than this one, but I'm going to be watching it week to week, just like everybody else. And I think that we're off to a good start. I'm going to be looking forward to episode 2. And of course, as always, I'm going to be reporting back here, maybe not weekly or maybe weekly if the show warrants it, to let you know what I think of the second season overall. And that's what I've got for you on this little news roundup. Like I said, it's kind of a supplement to the live show, but I like having the flexibility here on the channel to kind of jump in front of the camera and talk about some stuff that I didn't have a chance to talk about earlier in the week. Be sure to stay tuned here on the channel, because there's lots of other stuff I want to talk about, including the video that was originally going to be in this spot, which is a review of Ne Zha 2. It's the highest grossing film in the world, over $2 billion, a mega hit in China. It's now in theaters here in the United States. I went to see it, and I've got a lot of thoughts about it. You can probably tune in tomorrow at this time to see what I thought about the film. And I'm working on a couple other things that I might drop this weekend, might drop next week. We'll see what happens. But most of all, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you know when I upload a new video. And as always, until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.